What's up, everybody? It's the Z-Man, Zac Blobner. Brian Richie alongside me. We're rock and rolling. Episode 5, a full hand for you there in season 2 of the Craft Beer Playbook, and we're excited to chat with y'all today. We got some big things in the works that we're looking forward to sharing with you all in terms of some other episodes upcoming this season. We're also going to look back on a few highlights, not just from the show, but just from, the last 5 or 6 months of beer hopping and brewery hopping and drinking that we've been doing here locally in town. So it's been a fun ride, and we're excited to keep the train on the tracks, B. And man, I don't know what you're drinking tonight. I ended up with a variety of Hidden Springs beer, which we've had quite a bit of.
It's never a bad thing, though.
Oh, I'm not mad at it.
All right, so this was one of the big storms that I didn't get to with LJ when we had him on. But I'm going with the Bro Mosa, man. It's been sitting in there in the fridge. I've been waiting on it. I've been super excited about this. I got a pair of aviators myself, so that's on the can there. I'm excited. I think it's gonna suit me well. So
it's very refreshing, man. It'll get you going. Yeah, I'm actually working with the fanny pack, Brian, which is very tasty. The oatmeal raisin cookie inspired sour ale from Hidden Springs.
Let me ask you something, because a lot of people hate on oatmeal raisin cookies. They say it's a waste of a cookie and it's the worst cookie to eat.
This is a personal conversation for you because you're like an oatmeal cookie connoisseur.
I don't know about connoisseur. I don't eat many cookies, as you know. But when it comes to oatmeal raisin, I think it's a bit underrated. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's underrated. I think it's adequately rated. It's not great. Here's the problem. People see the oatmeal raisins and it catches people off guard too often, because if you're not paying enough attention, you'll grab it thinking it's a chocolate chip, and nothing's more disappointing than taking a bite into something. If
I hear that story a lot, but how often are people just digging through a random
you're at like a party or a bakery where
who mixes in chocolate chip with oatmeal raisin? Like, I hear people say that, and I'm always like, in what instance in your life have you dug into like a bag of cookies thinking that you're eating chocolate chip? And
it's not a bag. First of all, not all cookies come in bags, Brian. There are trays. There's all kind of things that people eat cookies off of. So I think that there's a lot of disappointment there if that's what you're expecting. Similar to beer. Have you ever had we do this, where you get an IPA and you're like, damn, this is going to be good. Like, you're in the mood for some hops and some pop. And then you take a sip and you're like, this tastes like a lager. Like, this isn't hoppy. Like, this isn't what I expected. I'm going to be honest. This fanny pack snack is spot on. It tastes
is that the oatmeal raisin one?
Yes. It tastes just like an oatmeal raisin cookie.
So you ate it is what you're saying.
So it is very tasty. Well, I didn't like it. I'm drinking it. No. I like
it. Ate it, not ate it. Ate it.
I eat the beer. Yeah,
eat the beer.
I like it, but we've had beers that we taste that don't hit the nail on the head in terms of taste. And
wow,
I always say I respect breweries that try to go outside the box and try things. I'd rather have you try something and miss the mark than just have 5 beers that are just real common that aren't really putting me outside of my comfort zone, because you're going to swing and miss sometimes. So for me, I'd rather have that. I know that one of the beers not to go back to Hidden Springs, but they did a carrot cake beer. And now usually they're spot on like this, but they did a carrot cake beer a month ago. And I was really disappointed because I hold them to such a high standard, because they hit the mark on so many tastes. Swamphead's really good at that too. Obviously Descent, I find myself over there a lot because they're really good. Arcane is, again, one of the newer places that we started going to that is just spot on. And we had last week Josh Kimmel on from the Once Upon a Sunday podcast, the Say It Again Network, the Real Talk Wrestling podcast as well. And he had the Baby Yoda pants from Arcane. And we were saying one of the best things about them is not only do they try these just crazy flavors, but they crush it. And if you can try crazy and you can get the crazy flavors right, you're going to be in the craft beer community and holding your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually impressed with this one. And I just noticed on the can here, on the back, it says pairs well with, and it has French toast, goat cheese, and steak and eggs. So they're really
what a random combo.
I know, but I guess they're going for the whole mimosa, bromosa. Like, you have one with breakfast, you have a
get
brunch,
that.
Right? I don't know about, listen, this makes me want to whip up some brunch this weekend and get another one of these. So probably going to do that.
And it's ironic because we had just had, like you mentioned, we talked to Big Storm, our guy LJ, and they actually just bought another place that they're going to open up in Ybor. They're taking over a spot in Ybor. And,
Wow.
we get out there quite a bit. You and I have Zadeco's out there. Berry House is one we haven't been to, and Gator alum apparently own that one. That's one we're slacking, bro.
I know, man. I can't believe that it's down the list on us. But I actually, last night when I was laying in bed, I was thinking about our podcast today, and I was like, you know what? I got to mention to Zach, we got to do Berry House like in the next 2 weeks at least. Because
it's good to know you're thinking about me and beer when you're falling asleep in bed. You're just like, what do I hate? Oh, Zach, beer. That's the last thing that crosses your mind.
No, man, that's how I ensure. If thinking about craft beer, it's how I ensure I have some nice dreams. So, but Berry House, man, I know everything we've heard about them is fantastic. Everyone loves the brewery. Yeah. Everyone loves the atmosphere. And then, of course,
we almost went the last time we were in Ybor. We almost went. And I was just like, we were walking towards there and we had to pass the garage where we had parked. And basically it was like, okay, well, if we want to do another brewery in a different area, like we're running out of time in terms of our night. Little did we know our night was going to be 5 hours longer than anticipated.
It always is.
But we wanted to kick it over. I think we actually ended up at Hidden Springs. I don't know if we stopped by Magnanimous first, but we went over to that area. Yeah.
Yeah, and Magnanimous is another one I'd love to bring on here and just do, hopefully we can chat with someone over there too. But I mean, the hazies that they have there are really good too. I mean, just impressive. I've only been there twice, but just impressed with the quality of beer every single time. They've got some amazing sours, amazing hazies over there. So looking forward to diving back into that.
Now we do have a brewery we've lined up to chat with next week, Brian. I don't know. Are we in a good place? Can we unveil that?
Yes, let's roll it out.
Hey, you did the legwork, man. So I'll kind of.
So Bootleggers, which is actually in Brandon, and we've been there a couple times before. And it's one of those ones where it's still a small brand name. So like you say the name Bootleggers, and you think of Tampa craft beer and breweries. Probably not the first thing that comes to mind. A lot of people probably don't even know where Bootleggers is located, but it is in Brandon. A really cool spot. I remember when me and you were there, and not to dive too much into it because I know we're going to be talking to them next week, but just the layout inside, and they have sort of an upstairs, some couches to sit on. So it's like really homey atmosphere, and they've got obviously the back patio outside that you can go onto too. So I don't remember a ton about their beer, to be completely honest with you, but I'm really excited to swing back in there at some point this week and grab some before we chat with Chance next week there.
I do recall us being there for quite a while, so the beer must have been good enough for us to at least get third, fourth, fifth. Also, and we'll tell the story in more depth next week, one of our good friends, Jay Bird, let us know that same night, the last time we were there.
Wait, we're giving that away right now? We're going to bring that
we get Art of the Teas. So that was a monumental night for us, and we'll kind of get more into that. But Bootleggers, excited to chat with them next week here in the Craft Beer Playbook. That'll be episode 6 here in season 2. But as we kind of keep rolling around, we got some people on the chat. Melanie says oatmeal cream pies. I'm going to have to try that. It sounds delicious for a sour. It is. Tyler says the No Bake Sour from Hidden Springs is very good as well. And absolutely. And that's, look, we talk about, I think you always bring up Angry Chair does the dessert dark beers really well. Yeah. Sours at Hidden Springs are just very good. And you mentioned Magnanimous. They do really good hoppy, IPAs, hazy IPAs. But yeah, sours at Hidden Springs are pretty tasty. Excited to get with Bootleggers. Since we're talking about Bootleggers, though, we got to bring up a bootleg type of quarterback that's back in the NFL, Brian. Wearing this hat. He's not going to be a quarterback, though, when he returns after a hiatus of playing spring training ball at the Mets. Tim Tebow back in the NFL.
Timmy.
Start here. Percentage that he makes the roster in Jacksonville. What are you putting on it?
All right. So, first glance, you're like, okay, percentage has to be 0. But then if you look at their roster and the fact that he is a gadget guy, he's a tight end now. If you go look at the tight ends that are currently on Jacksonville's roster, I think you'll probably recognize one name out of those 7 guys. And if you think about it, hey, listen, is it an absolute long shot for him to make the team? Absolutely, because at this point, I mean, he hasn't played football competitively in he hasn't been with Urban Meyers in 12 years, right? So I think anyone hoping that he's going to step in and be like a major contributor, that's pretty much swinging for the fences. But looking at if he's a tight end and if he's going to block and he's going to be some gadget guy And I don't know what, Urban Meyer has in store for him. I don't know if it's just purely a leadership mentor role while they're in camp, but if he can legitimately carve out some sort of versatile role there, he's only got to beat out like 3 or 4 no-name tight ends to make the roster. So I'm going to put his chances at, I say 10% to make the roster.
Ooh, see, now I put it at 25% this morning on sports radio when we're doing the morning show. Cause I was like, it's hard for me to believe Urban would let him do the tryout, bring him in, put him through all that if he doesn't anticipate him at least having somewhat of a chance to make the roster. And I get what you're saying in terms of like a leadership or mentorship type of role. I just think Urban doesn't care in terms of like what everybody else is saying. If that's one of his guys and he wants to bring him in, he's going to do that. And at the very least, it's going to make this team even more entertaining to watch from afar. I know that the owner of the Jags has come out and they're legitimately asking to be on Hard Knocks. Like the Jaguars are going to the NFL Network, and they've said, we want to be the team. We want to be on the NFL Network. And another breaking story from today, both Jacksonville and I want to say it's Atlanta is the other team, but I know it's the Jags, are locked in as one of the 2 home games in London. They'll be back in London this year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying as far as, bringing a guy in that he's familiar with. But, I mean, let's be honest. He hasn't played football competitively in years, right?
So why even give him the tryout? Why even let him come in and work out?
Well, I think out of respect for the player and wanting to give him a chance, because he knows that obviously no one else is going to give Tim Tebow a chance at all to come in and try to make the team. I don't know. Again, I could be dead wrong. Maybe Urban Meyer truly believes that Tebow is one of the best 53 guys that he could put on the roster. I don't know what kind of football shape. I mean, we obviously know Tim Tebow keeps in great shape. He obviously has been playing in the minor leagues with the Mets. So we know athletically, like, he'll be in shape. Is it football shape? We don't know. I mean, does he, he says he's a tight end now, but like, are they bringing him in to test him out as like a gadget guy, like H-back, be a little bit of a receiver out of the backfield, some blocking? Like, I don't know. Like, there's too much unknown for me to look at that and say, okay, he's definitely going to make the team just because Urban brought him in,
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying he's definitely going to make it. I just think I do think it is a legitimate opportunity to make the team. I don't think it's, I guess it's still a long shot. I guess I don't personally believe it's as much of a long shot as others. But hey, at the very least, his name still carries as much weight as it used to. Polarizing topic. I mean, you can look all around social media. You got everybody believing that he's for sure on the roster to people saying that he shouldn't even be given the opportunity to work out. I mean, you're both sides of the spectrum and everything in between. And I think, in terms of the Jags, if you're Urban Meyer, I don't know how much of a sideshow like this I would want in year one, right, with Trevor Lawrence on board. But for the fans and for the NFL audience, I think it's phenomenal. I think this is great news.
Yeah, I think we know Urban, like, he's never been a guy to shy away from the spotlight, right? So he's a guy, he's bringing in Tebow. I don't think he's too concerned about the potential sideshow or the circus that comes with that. And, I think obviously it's great for the Jags because they're a team that's, they fizzled out since going to the AFC Championship a few years ago. They're a team that no one's really paid attention to. They've got, they've done a massive overhaul with the roster. But I think having Tebow there now and obviously having the opportunity to potentially land Hard Knocks, like, that's like the dream for the Jags, right? And owner Shad Khan, like, that's like exactly what he wants. He got his new quarterback in there, Trevor Lawrence, carries a lot of star power. Now they're, potentially could land Hard Knocks. They got Tebow, Urban Meyer. I mean, there's storylines for days there. And that's got to be like the most exciting time to be a Jaguars fan because, hey, before the season starts, you have the one thing that everyone else has is hope, right? Before they start losing games, they've got hope that they could have a good season. So more power to them.
I'm with you, and we'll see what happens. And I mean, ultimately, the fans don't have any say about this. It's what Urban wants to do. And ironically, I covered the Jags. I was in Jacksonville for a while, and there was a time prior to Blake Bortles getting there that the fan base was split in Duval. Like some of them wanted Tebow. They're like, it can't be worse than the things that we've had here at quarterback. And at the very least, it'll be entertaining. It'll put eyes on him. And I think that that's kind of where I'm at now for sure. If nothing else, the conversation is found itself back in Jacksonville. The schedule release for the NFL, entire schedule release is going to be tomorrow evening. And I'm excited about that just to see where the Bucs, open the season when they travel to New England with Tom Brady in hand to take on the Pats. I know you're pumped about the Dolphins schedule. They play the Bucs. They'll be at Ray J this year for a regular season game. So we're both pretty excited about the NFL schedule release. When it comes to releases, though, Brian, and we're going to get to the friend of the show segment here in a short couple of minutes. We're making it a family affair tonight, but we're going to go with old school sports fan David, who is your pops, and I think it's nice. We're getting some family involved finally, very supportive of us, and we're really appreciative of that. And we've told so many stories about him and his drinking habits. It's only fair that we bring him in. So we'll do that again a short time from now. But in terms of releases with the NFL schedule, beer releases are also a big part of the craft beer community, right? And people will mark their calendars. They'll wait in line. Like, beer releases have become such a big deal that have grown with the craft beer community. And I remember the first like mug club beer release type thing was Cigar City. And again, forgive me on some of the pronunciations, including the Catador Club, I think is what it was called, or something like that, with Cigar City, and they still have it. And basically, you were getting access to certain bottles and stuff that, just regular people there drinking didn't have access to. You got some kind of discounts and some other things. And then, now you're seeing with this, and I, again, forgive me on the pronunciation, it's spelled OZNR. I'm going to say it's the OZNR App.
OZNR?
OZNR. And it's got, so we're starting to see this pop up more and more. And I noticed it at Hidden Springs, back to Hidden Springs, not too long ago, because they had some beers available that Ariel and I were looking at. And I was like, that looks really good. And they're like, oh, you have to enter the raffle on the app to even have a chance to buy it. Like, not even just to get it, just to have the opportunity to get it. Arcane Works did the same thing with the Baby Yoda pants that we just saw, again, from our guy Josh Kimmel last week. But some of the other ones on here, Brian, that have both releases and also mug club type memberships for the year: Bayboro, which we were just at in St. Pete before the Rays game; Descent, which I mentioned; 8-1 Babe Brewing is on here; Angry Chair, Arcane, Magnanimous is on here. So there is like a lot of breweries. Woven Waters on here, and it's just the new thing. And I'm kind of torn on it because I love how inclusive the craft beer community is. And I was talking again to Ariel, and her father is in Louisville in a craft beer mug club at one of the local breweries there. And roughly the pricing is the same as the ones here. And I told her, I was like, I like that there's the opportunity to do it. I just hope that they don't widen the gap too much between people that are just randomly wanting to go get a beer at their brewery every once in a while. And when I'm talking, I mean generally. Like, I'm not calling out a specific brewery. I hope it doesn't take away from that inclusiveness of the craft beer community by saying we're going to separate, the elite mug club members from everybody else,
from
that
the
walks
scrubs.
pretty much. So, that's a concern of mine.
But how much detail do we have, right? So is it something that is limiting, like you can only get a certain beer if you are part of the mug club? Is like that how it works?
So we'll use Descent as, well, there's two examples, right? So I used Hidden Springs earlier. So they just had a release today called Empty Devils. It's a double oak barrel aged imperial stout. It's $30 a bottle. And they're sold out. But basically, if you would have went to the brewery and you looked in their cooler, like, you couldn't have just bought it there. You would have had to buy it on the app. And I'm sure they only had X amount of people that could sign up and buy it because they only have X amount of bottles, right? It makes sense. So that's one of the instances. The other instance, and I'll use Descent because, full disclosure, I'm fully considering, joining up for the Descent Mug Club. So this is something I'm talking about quite a bit this week. But they have $150 to join their mug club. And for that $150, you get a 20-ounce fill in your very own mug. So I'm getting, that's pretty common for mug clubs. Like, basically you have a bigger glass and you can put any beer in it. So you're getting more bang for your buck because you're not paying for the 20 ounces. You're paying for whatever the beer is, right? So that's the first thing on the list. A super exclusive, one-of-a-kind t-shirt, which everybody loves t-shirts, 20% off all to-go beer and merchandise. 6 growler fills, which I think is where you get the money too. Like, 6 growler fills, that's a lot of beer to bring home. And then it says a reserved bottle of all releases. So anytime they do like a release, they'll set a bottle aside for you. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you still have to pay for that bottle because most of these clubs, they set a bottle aside. Same thing with Hidden Springs and the one I mentioned just now. So there are benefits, and I think you were breaking it down. We talked a little bit before the show. If you break it down per month, it's really not that much, especially if you're going to the brewery. But just like any membership, I'm always in my head like, well, how often do I have to go to make it worth my while? And we do. I'd say we go to Descent off the top of my head, definitely 10 plus times a year. I just don't know how much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you break it down, right? You said it's $150 for the year, which if you think about that in terms of one lump sum, it sounds like a lot for beer, but you break it down monthly. I mean, it's only like what, $12 a month, right? You're going to spend that in one trip to the brewery anyways. So it's basically like hitting up these breweries one time a month. And that's what you're spending on that. You're getting all these extra exclusive things. Now, like I said, I would agree with you in the sense that if it's something where you can only get a certain beer by being in the club, that's where I think you blur the lines of kind of ruining that openness of the club, of the community. But from what you just read there, I didn't hear anything that was like, you have to be in the club to get this beer. It just gives you obviously a guarantee that you can get one of the releases, but any old Joe Schmo is not part of the club can still do it. Just sign up early, right? Get in line, everything you got to do for a regular beer release anyways.
And I mentioned Bayboro was on there without having it pulled up again right now. They have like 3 different versions of the membership from what I saw. So you can be in different levels, different opportunities. And listen, I get it from the brewery standpoint because it's giving you an easy way to kind of keep all your regulars basically on an app. Like, hey, y'all go there. We'll have everything up. That way we can kind of stay on the same page. And again, I don't hate it. It's just something that I hope doesn't take away from the experience at all. Because I remember with Cigar City, it was something that kind of bummed me out because I was like, well, I'm not going to sign up for this. But I remember there were times where I'd be there and I'd be like, oh, I wish I could try this beer. So,
and that's fine because you know what? As much as we drink there at those breweries, they love us just the same. So we're still dropping our dimes.
Oh, I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying, it's a trend I've definitely noticed. And the other thing too is like, me and you and I, we like to bounce around to a lot of different breweries. Obviously, these mug clubs are built to keep you into their brewery more often or stop by, rather than maybe try a new one or go to one you haven't been to in a while. It's like, I'm part of the mug club. I'm probably going to go over there and get, more bang for my buck. So, that's on the individual. That's not on the brewery. That's every brewery's goal is to keep you in their place more than others. I just, I enjoy the aspect of bar hopping and brewery hopping. And look, I mean, to be blunt, that's one of the reasons we made the show, right? That's why we have the website, thecraftbeerplaybook.com. That's why we have social media, Instagram and Facebook at the Craft Beer Playbook, Twitter at Beer Playbook. So I don't think we're like going to go from 0 to 60 in terms of it, like just completely going from inclusive to exclusive. I just hope that, and again, everybody has their own setup on there, but I do think that, places have to be careful not to blur the lines too much. That's all I'm trying to say.
Hey, I hear you. I hear your concern. I'll drink to that.
That's all. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers, brother. Well, which, by the way, you still drinking the raisin beer?
No, I switched it up. I went back to one that we've had on the show, the Enchanted Tiki Room, which is one of the Dole Whips, the Disney style beers that Hidden Springs, the Dole Whip. Yeah, so I'm sipping on that now. I got quite a bit of it. To be honest with you, I started drinking before the show. That's why I ran out of the oatmeal raisin cookie beer.
You just had the little suds left.
I had to just wet the whistle a little bit.
This one, I love this one, by the way. This is really good, man. And it's smooth too. Like
the Big Storm, Bromosa, right? Still.
Yeah, Bromosa. And like I really like the really hoppy ones. Like give me a dry, bitter IPA. But this is on the other end. I mean, this is a pretty mild one, but it's got that strong tangerine taste. I love tangerines. I grew up with tangerines. Used to have a tangerine tree in my backyard. Go out there after school some days, just rip through like 5 or 6 of them. So I love it, man. It's a good little juicy refreshment.
We're all about refreshments here on the Craft Beer Playbook. Season 2, episode 5 rolls on. Our friend of the show is more than that. It's a family affair. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we return, old sports fan David will hop on. Don't laugh. He'll hop on with us and we'll chat a little bit. This is the Craft Beer Playbook. I'm Zach. That's Brian. That's Brian. I'm Zach.
Regular guys, we love craft beer. We love sports. So,
Belichick or Brady? Who's the guy? I think one of the conversations we have the most about the Lightning is the Steven Stamkos dilemma and how much he contributed to that cup.
Like, does Eli Manning deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? I like that.
Of course you do.
It's their specialty there at Angry Chair.
Magnanimous. I'm wearing the hat right now.
Hidden Springs.
And Brew Bus is another great thing here in Tampa Bay.
Here, let's show off the can here. Coppertail Brewery.
Like, that's interesting. That's tasty. I don't know if I could have a full one, though. Best beer you've ever had?
Oh, I smell it. That's got a good aroma. That thing's strong.
Smacks you. Again, this is the Craft Beer Playbook, Zach and Brian. Make sure you're following us on all social media. Easy to find at the Craft Beer Playbook on both Instagram and Facebook, at Beer Playbook on Twitter, because apparently there's too many characters in the Craft Playbook.
Community. And if you feel you're part of the community who A, loves sports, B, loves craft beer, or both, right? Then this is the spot for you, and we want obviously help growing this.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right.
We're gonna have no problems drinking these.
We might have to get double beers next time.
I'm ready.
All right, we are back. It is season 2, episode 5 of the Craft Beer Playbook, and it's our friend of the show segment. But Brian, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to let you do the intro on this one, bro.
Yeah, my friend, my dad, my old school sports fan, David. How you doing, David?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Thanks for having me on, by the way.
What's that?
I said,
No.
thanks for having me on, by the way. It's kind of a surprise when you called me yesterday and invited me on.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, for the listeners out there, my dad's been listening, my mom as well, listening to all the episodes here so far. So we wanted to get you on here, Dad, just because, I wanted you to kind of tell a little bit of your story with the craft beer as well. I know that I was the one that kind of introduced that to you, got into it first, and started trying out different things in college. So we thought it'd be awesome to bring you on and kind of show how this kind of expands. We talk about it a lot. I know I've talked about how Uncle Tim is obviously loving to try different beers now as well. So we wanted to bring you on and kind of hear your take on things. So what's been the biggest thing for you when it comes to craft beer? How's it been like? How's the start of dipping your toes in that water? What
flipped the switch? I want to know what got you. What flipped the switch and made you say, all right, I'm ready to get into the craft beer community?
Well, actually, like I said, it's Brian, introduced me to it. And of course, for years, all I ever drank was Bud or Bud Light or Michelob, Michelob products or whatever. So didn't really have the variety that you have in the craft beer, business. So, when he turned me on to some of these, obviously I like some of them better than others. My taste buds are a little bit different. I think I tend to go more for the citrusy type, beers. But then again, I've had some darks that I really enjoy too. So, because I started drinking coffee about 10 years ago, which I didn't grow up drinking it. So now you kind of incorporate that with some of the beers. You get like a coffee taste with them too. So
that's really good. It's funny, David, you bring that up. I used to so when I bartended at World of Beer, every once in a while I'd work some of the night. Well, I worked a lot of night shifts, but for some of the night shifts that I worked, sometimes we'd get people that come in and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm tired," and they'd be like, "Oh, let me get you a coffee stout. It'll wake you right up," without telling them like there's no caffeine in it, because they do some of these. They smell and some of them taste heavily like coffee, but you grow to like that taste though. Speaking of, what are you sipping on right now? What do you got over there?
Well, my wife went out and got me a 12-pack Cigar City. And this is the Guayabera.
I was about to say, that looks like the Guayabera. Yeah. Awesome.
So obviously, you guys know about it. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the connoisseur that you guys are, but as I said before earlier, that the citrus ones, and this is kind of the citrus pale ale. So
yeah,
that's my choice out of the 12-pack that variety that she got me.
Nice. Dad, do you remember what the first craft beer was that I made you try? I know it's been a while now, but do you remember what it was?
I don't remember really, to be honest with you.
I feel like it was probably something from Swamphead, because I feel like coming back from college, I think that might have been one of the, because I used to, actually I still have my little mini growler in there. I think that I might have brought something home, but it's been cool to see, obviously your taste buds have expanded, and I know it's kind of introducing you to some new things. Obviously, you're a big shock top guy, as you said. So, and it's interesting too, because my dad has, like you said, sort of different tastes. Like he tends to go more towards that Belgian wheat, that sort of European style beer, which I'm not a huge Belgian fan, but I could drink them here and there. Obviously, I like shock top. But it's just interesting to see, that's his kind of affinity is more towards those Belgian styles. Dad, I don't think I've gotten you to try a Belgian quad yet. So that would be something that kind of
You won't
stepped the level.
remember it anyways. It'll knock you on your ass. Those are like 10%ers and up usually.
Yeah, you only need one of those.
Hey, but David, I want to ask
our trip to Gainesville there when me and my friend Alan went up there for the basketball game. That's probably how it would end up.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised you don't even remember that. We've had to fill you in on the blanks a lot, but it's interesting. You mentioned traveling to Gainesville, and I know you and Melanie travel a ton. I wanted to ask you though, because obviously we had Kings Bluff Brewery on. That was something you guys facilitated to kind of wrap up season 1 in the craft beer playbook. How much is like craft beer cool to get into from a travel perspective? Because everywhere you go, there's breweries, right?
Mm-hmm. Well. Yeah, I mean that's we're actually going to be going up there again this weekend, and we're definitely going to stop in and see Dustin, and let him know. We'll let him know you guys said hey or whatever. And
Please.
obviously, when we're moved up there, you guys can come visit, and we'll take you down there. But yeah, I think I like that aspect of it. They're homey, they're small, they're not they're usually not jam packed, but the people are really nice, and that's the experiences I've gotten going to all the craft breweries and stuff like that. So it is pretty neat. It's a neat experience. So I'm assuming it's going to be that way wherever we go. I mean, when we're traveling on after our retirement years, I'll definitely we'll be stopping in some different breweries and stuff like that along the way.
Because you didn't know about Kings Bluff when you got up there. You guys were just basically, looking for a place to stop, and you were like, let's check out a brewery, and that popped up on Google, and you ended up there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we stopped there because of you guys, actually. This was obviously after you guys had started your podcast. So, nice. We said, hey, this would be cool to go in there. And we struck up the conversation. Luckily, he happened to be there, the owner, and we struck up a conversation with him, and he was very nice. And as you guys know, he turned into a really good interview.
Yeah.
And, and so we plan on seeing him. We don't have a lot of time. We're going to be up there just for 4 days this weekend, but we'll definitely try to, take an hour or two to go down there and say hey and drink a beer with him.
So I know I've had you try a lot of different types of beers so far, and you've done some of your own exploring too. I remember you showed me there was that Shock Top like variety pack where they had like the salted pretzel and all those different flavors there. So I know this is a tough question, but out of all the different types of beers that you've tried so far, do you have a list of like a top 3 or top favorites that you can remember that really?
We know you have a list. Brian's told us about your paperback you've been carrying around, so we know there's
got him the
there's
paperback,
a list somewhere.
Well, to be honest with you, you mentioned Shock Top, and I can't find that beer anymore. So I don't know if it's the pretzel beer. I love it.
Oh yeah,
and it was in a variety pack that had a couple of other different beers in there, but we used to be able to get it at the commissary on base, the Class 6 package store there, and they don't sell it. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen it. Maybe what's the other the place that sells a lot of variety of stuff? They might have it.
ABC Liquors, Total Wine. Yeah, there's
Total Wine. Yeah, maybe Total Wine.
I haven't seen it in a while now. Now that you bring it up, I don't think I haven't caught it in a while, because I like that too. It's a good one.
I really liked that one. That was really good for as far as something completely different, and it really did taste like pretzels, to tell you the truth. I mean, it was
these pretzels are making me thirsty. So obviously love talking beer with you, but also want to talk some sports. I mean, your name on the show is Old School Sports Fan, David. So I argue with Brian about sports. I don't know if you knew that, pretty much all the time. Like whether we're on the show, off the show, when we were 15, now that we're 30, like that's just something me and Brian have somehow built a friendship on, for better or worse. But can you just take us back? Most of the time worse. Take us back to the early days of like what like it was like, kind of where were the Dolphins at when Brian really started like digging in? Because you guys had season tickets for a while, and you made the trip down south. So when did you really start to see Brian turn and be like, oh, Dolphins are my team for life? Like, when did you kind of see that sparkle in his eye?
Well, I noticed it right around the time, basically really got into it when we got Ricky Williams. Maybe a couple years before, but I think he really started really getting into it when we got him. And, it's funny. I took him to games, as a youngster, and, he got into it really good. And then, he played some football in high school. And then a lot of people ask me, for example, how I'm an Oriole fan. And that's a whole nother story, but how that came about, which Brian is also, I raised him as an Oriole fan. I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm 60 years old now, but back in 1970, when I was 10, the Orioles were in the World Series with the Cincinnati Reds, the Big Red Machine. And they beat the Reds, and I've followed them ever since. And of course, I was down there also. I was in Fort Lauderdale when the Dolphins were, in their heyday. I was 12 years old in 1972 when they had their perfect year, and I actually attended a Monday night game against the Cardinals.
What?
Yeah,
I never knew that.
They're in their perfect season. My dad took me to a Monday night game, and they were playing the Cardinals. Zonka had over 100 yards rushing. And I don't know if you remember the guy, the Hall of Famer for the Cardinals was Larry Wilson. He played safety for him. He was still back then. So, no, I mean, when I'm a fan of somebody, I'm a fan for life. I'm not one of these, jump bandwagoners, so.
I can't believe I've never heard that story. All the times I've been around y'all talking Dolphins over beers. And
oh, yeah.
I never knew that. So you got to go to a game during the champagne popping year that we celebrate. Well, we don't. Dolphins fans, y'all do. Y'all celebrate.
We do.
Do you guys ever think that'll be eclipsed? Do you think you'll ever see another team go start to finish perfect? Like, I don't know, the Bucs this year. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I would have said never, but I mean, the Patriots just about did it. I mean, had it not just been for that great play by
David Tyree, the helmet catch.
Yeah, they would have done it. So I'm not going to say that it won't never be done again, but it's.
Yeah, I've kind of changed my tune on that too. I mean, it's part of its pride saying no other team will go undefeated. But you look at it, there's been some close calls, and there's been a lot of teams get into week 16, 17. The only thing I'll say now is they're adding an extra game. So now there's going to be 17 regular season games. And obviously, we know any given Sunday you can lose any week. So now adding a game to that, I think, just increases the chances that the Dolphins remain as the only undefeated team. But just think about it. The NFL is a conglomerate. It's a giant. It's going to be in business for centuries. So I think you look at eventually there's going to be another team going undefeated. And, honestly, I'd love to see the Dolphins be the only team. But at the same tune, we have to stop living in the past because, as you can see, the age difference here, he's got to see all the glory days. I haven't seen any of that. So after a while, we got to start creating some new legacies here instead of relying on the 70s.
Well, we know how Brian feels about Tua and the team that's in place now, David. I want to know how you feel because you're usually a little bit more grounded than Brian is when it comes to expectations. So what do you see from Miami this year?
Actually, I was riding along with Brian when we drafted Tua. My family didn't, and then we had some people on that night. It was last year's draft, so everybody was kind of like FaceTiming like we're doing now. And they all said, no, we don't want to. We don't. So me and Brian were the only ones basically that wanted him at the time. And I still feel, he's got a lot of potential. And I still feel now that they've surrounded him with some weapons. I think you're going to see a lot better performance out of him this year. And quite frankly, I'm expecting them to challenge the Bills for the division this year. So I really do.
I want to piggyback off that, Dad. So, because I know there's a lot of different answers to this question. So, what will it take from Tua this year for you to know that he's the guy? Is it a stat line? Is it like just eyeball test? Like for you to know, okay, we got our franchise quarterback. What does he have to do to show you that?
Or he's going to have to Brian and blame the OC at the end of the year and ask for a new OC every season.
Well, what I was a little concerned about was his arm strength last year. I mean, what I want to be able to see him is to be able to throw that, that deep 30-yard slant or something like that with some zip on it. We know he's athletic enough to maneuver around in the pocket and stuff like that, and he's very accurate. But to me, the question mark was his arm strength a little bit last year. I had to question that on some of the games that I watched him play, and if he can correct that and get that back to where it was, then I'll feel much better because he has all the other attributes. He's going to be a good quarterback. He's smart, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but the physical part of it is what kind of concerned me a little bit. And I know that, he's just coming off a major injury and he didn't have the OTAs or all that to go, to fall back on. So that's what I'm looking for this year, start of this season. I'm looking to see how his arm strength and how he gets rid of the ball this year compared to last.
Yeah, I think Brian's very optimistic in terms of the offense opening up more. I do think regardless, we're going to find out if Tua is the guy or not pretty quickly this season, David, because he is going to get the opportunity to at least attempt those types of throws, the home run ball, some of the bigger passes that you see guys like Mahomes and maybe not Lamar Jackson, but Mahomes making, when you talk about elite young quarterbacks. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. You mentioned challenging the Bills. So we're all on the same page. The Patriots and Jets aren't even going to be in the conversation in terms of the AFC East this year. Is that right?
Well, I wouldn't say the Patriots aren't going to be in. I definitely think that they'll have somewhat of a bounce back year. I don't think they're going to be as bad. Simply because, Belichick just don't have 2 bad years in a row. So I'm sure he's done what he needs to do what he thinks he needs to do to get that team to be competitive again. So,
well, if you remember, that team, again, they had a bad year last year, but there were games that they shouldn't have won that they did. If you remember, they completely just beat the shit out of Justin Herbert, and the Chargers had him confused, looking like a rookie. And what a lot of people forget about the Patriots,
just can't miss an opportunity to take a shot at Justin Herbert.
Hey,
you just can't miss an opportunity.
Listen, a lot of people forget that the Patriots did have a lot of guys opt out last year. So not only did they spend a boatload in free agency, which again doesn't always work out, but they filled a lot of needs. But they're also getting guys back that opted out from COVID that everyone just forgot about last year because of that. And Cam Newton's not going to be their only option at quarterback. Now, is Mac Jones going to be the guy? Is he going to be someone that definitely is that much better than Cam Newton? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe not. Who knows? But they have options now at the quarterback position. They don't have to lean on Cam Newton, who clearly, by all intents and purposes, is no longer the quarterback that can lead a team to the playoffs. But that team's going to be, I think, surprisingly – well, I don't know. Is it even surprising? You think about, like my dad said, Bill Belichick's teams – that's not surprising. He always gets them playing hard and competing. They're a team that I fully expect to be in the mix next year for potentially a playoff spot, at least late in the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a three-team race there.
Who wins the division, Dad? Who wins?
They'll probably split each series between each other. So
who wins the division?
I'm going to lean towards Buffalo right now, but I think Miami's going to be real close, maybe a game behind them or whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win it either. So
real quick, right now, piggyback off the Tua question. I'm going to phrase that same thing for the Dolphins. What kind of season next year would be a success for the Dolphins in your eyes?
Well, they have to make the playoffs.
Is that it?
Maybe
there's an extra playoff slot this year, so that certainly should be on the table for every team in terms of expectations.
Well, they won 10 games last year, so if they don't make the playoffs this year, that's a disappointment. You got to figure that they're veering towards that. And
they would have been the extra team, right? If we had moved to 17 games in the NFL last year, I think they would have been that last team.
They would have made it last year.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging. Right? You got to feel good about it.
Well, there was
another good draft.
There was 7 teams that made the playoffs last year. We were the 8th.
That's
seed.
Right. That's right.
So they're adding a game next year.
Right.
Yeah, we were the 8th seed. We just barely missed out because we obviously shit the bed against the Bills in the last week. But
that just showed you how far back we were.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
but we've gained ground, I think, during this offseason.
Oh, great drafts for sure. Yeah, you guys had all those picks. David, before we get you out of here, we got to obviously you've been up in Gainesville with us quite a bit. I know we have plenty of stories. One of my favorite ones, though, sports related, is the morning you walked outside of our house in Gainesville and you saw another SEC coach coming down the street, right?
Yeah. That was when it slips my mind right now.
Bruce Pearl.
That was when Bruce Pearl was coaching Tennessee's men's basketball team. And we went up there to watch them play the Gators. And I'd had a few of the little
a few cocktails,
and walking up the road, and I started yelling at him, saying that you guys are going down, the Gators going to take you down, or whatever. And he got a nice chuckle out of it, and sure enough, my word was true, because the Gators beat them that night.
That was an awesome place, man. I mean, that experience was really cool, and having you and Alan come up there, and obviously we know. Maybe we don't have to get into the details of your cracked rib story, but that's a drinking game that story lives on throughout, obviously, us and all of our friends. Yeah. But yeah, awesome experience, having Bruce Pearl walk down the road. I mean, that's the ultimate college house, being where that was located. And just to see him walking down that dirt road randomly was pretty awesome.
That was funny. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd say the cracked ribs, you were swinging the bat like Chris Davis for the Orioles there on that day. Yeah, no, all jokes aside.
No, the difference was I hit the ball. I just fell after I hit the ball.
That's true. You hit the ball, then you hit the ground. Yeah. But you did make contact.
Exactly.
That's true. Well, hey, man, nothing but love from us, obviously, and we appreciate all the support that you throw our way, you and Melanie, and certainly excited not to just see you soon again, but also have some craft beers again in person. And, you've been out to Bastet with us. You've been at Seventh Son. You've come to all the events we've done out and about. We'll certainly have some more of those coming up, David, but really, really do appreciate you, man.
No problem, man. We enjoy it. Love you.
Cheers.
Guys. All right.
Cheers.
Have a good evening.
All right.
There you
cheers.
go. Old school sports fan, David. Also Brian's dad, and it's always nice to chat with him. And man, it's funny because we've been drinking around him so long, but like he mentioned, kind of evolving from the Bud Lights and Miller Lights, and look, we all still drink those too, but yeah, our evolution was there too, Brian. We look back on that a lot in terms of like, we used to drink nothing but domestic beers. Like when we got out of our comfort zone, it was Yingling. Like that was it for a long time.
Well, you think about the stories we were just talking about, right? I mean, all the drinking games that we used to play in college was about drinking games, because obviously you had the cheap beer. It didn't.
Could you imagine like 8%ers for beer pong? Oh my God.
Louisville chugger with some Belgian quads. You'd play one game and that'd be the end of it. We'd end up with way more than cracked ribs with that.
You ain't kidding, man. So again, shout out to our friend of the show, family of the show this week, and old school sports fan, David, and really looking forward to next week. We're going to get into it with Bootleggers and certainly chat about them. They're located over in the Brandon area, right off of Causeway. So I'm excited about that with you, Brian. We'll have some more good beers, some more good sports conversation. We'll have the NFL schedule to look at, which should be entertaining, and the Lightning. The NHL playoffs will have started by then.
Hell yeah, man. It's crazy how fast it's gone, right? It's like we just celebrated the last cup. We were watching that game, and now it's like, all right, we're back in the playoffs again. It flew by. I know it's been obviously a weird season with the regroupings of the divisions, things like that. But for me, it doesn't take away the sheen of the championship. I'm looking forward to hopefully a run at the second one. They're obviously up there in the top 3 favorites to win it again. So cheers to that, brother. I'm ready for it. Let's gear up and get us Stanley number 2.
Yes, sir.
Well, all right. 3, right? 3 overall, but 2 in a row.
Back to back. All right, everybody. Appreciate everybody for joining as always. Episode 5, season 2 of the Craft Beer Playbook. We'll see y'all in 7 days. Giddy up.
See ya.